Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark, and joining me this week, we got both the other dragons to make up the We Three Dragons, my regular co-hosts, John and Nessie. And we are joined this week by the actor hired to play John's friend, Jared. Hey, Jared, that joke is never going away at this point.
I've made my peace with it, though. Now that we actually have been in the same place, you can at least verify that if John did hire someone to play, like we can verify that I am not actually. John and I are different people.
You are, in fact, different people. I have seen you both like side by side in the same place.
But now I know why you always have extra headroom, Jared. It's to make me feel better on these streams, because when we're in person, there is no me.
No,
going higher than you. It's just not going to happen. Which was one of the surprises I had in store for me when I first saw you in person.
Yeah, I hate being that guy, but when I met you, I believe my first words were, "Wow, you're really tall."
Yeah, no. For those of you who are not aware, I'm 6'4". You just can't always tell when.
Yeah, I had no idea until I met you, but yeah, we did meet we all were together at HereBeCon, and it was you were a lovely person, nothing like what I expected you to be.
Guys, I still can't get over the fact that we're talking about the fact that we all met each other.
Yeah,
I know it's been a little bit now, but I'm still on cloud nine.
Hi, Betsy. I'll give you a consult after we finish talking about space stuff.
I'm going to assume you are out of her network.
Probably, but I won't bill her.
Oh, okay. You get a free one. My advice would be stop doing that. But oh dang!
Wow.
Can't get real with it. Okay, but yeah, enough beating around.
I can't win with her, because I've even been saying nice stuff about Marvel lately, and she's still on me.
It's crazy.
But yeah, we are, in case the T-shirts and the background pictures and the whatever didn't give it away, we are here to talk a little Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars show, The Book of Boba Fett, also known as The Mandalorian Season 2.5.
By certain people.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will come up at least once or twice.
It will. Absolutely. I don't think there's any way around it. But so usually we will start off with sort of like overall impressions, and I will throw it to our guest first, Jared. What was your overall impression of the Book of Boba Fett?
Overall, I really, really liked it. I might even go so far to say I loved it. I've always had a connection to the character of Boba Fett because he was the character who introduced me to the expanded universe back in the day. I had no idea there was any Star Wars behind the movies until one of my friends told me about Boba Fett, quote, blasting his way out of the Sarlacc. And I went in search of that story and found, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and was off to the races then. So I was always keen to see Boba Fett come back post Return of the Jedi, having survived the Sarlacc in a show like this, which is why it was so gratifying when it happened in The Mandalorian. And when I heard we were getting, he was getting his own show, I was thrilled. I was looking forward to it probably even more than the next season of The Mandalorian. And overall, I think that the show did what I wanted it to do for the character of Boba Fett. I do agree that perhaps it would have been better served if they had made it more clear up front that this was part of the ongoing Mandalorian story. I think that going forward, we can probably safely assume that other shows like Ahsoka will also fit into that mold. I think that they're kind of tying it together into a big kind of event series. Mm-hmm. But I still thought that Boba Fett as a character was well served by this show and I found all of the connections that I look for in the Star Wars story, namely the ideas of hope, choice, found family. I found them all here, and I thought that it was interesting in the way that, because I never really thought about Boba Fett that way. You know, he was always, from the original movies, he was the lone gunslinger. But that's not always the greatest type of character for a show like this. You have to dig deeper. You have to find what makes them more human. And I love the way that they did that, going back to his time as a child from Attack of the Clones, that they kind of really did see how going into that Sarlacc pit changed him, and that he ultimately made a different choice, a better choice, unlike his counterpart, Cad Bane, who we will also discuss. So I was very satisfied. I do not think the show was flawless. I do think that there were a couple bumps in the road, but overall, I was very pleased.
Right on. I'm really glad to hear that you enjoyed it. Now, I always think it's good when somebody finds a story that they connect with and enjoy. We'll just keep going around the circle then. John, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm probably land in a similar place in that I don't think the show was without its issues here and there, and mostly I'd say most of my like not complaints, but like little again issues were probably around the midsection of the season, maybe episodes 3 and 4. But I did love the way the first half of the season kind of tells Boba's story leading up to, you know, what we saw in The Mandalorian, and then the second half ties into this larger story. And I also agree. I was saying to Jared a bit ago that I wish that they had actually started the show with like chapter 21 to give you the impression that this was the ongoing story started in The Mandalorian.
No, but Star Wars doesn't do that, though. You have to start from episode 1. That's how Star Wars works.
Yeah, but I loved it. There were things in this that just made me so unbelievably giddy. I told Nessie that I called episode 2 the train job. And it kind of brought back like Firefly feels. I loved so many like touches that felt geeky. Like there's Harryhausen stuff. There's just like, you know, things from, you know, celebrating the prequel, celebrating Return of the Jedi. There's just so much that as a Star Wars fan and as a movie fan just made me giddy. And then, of course, the stuff in the latter episodes that ties in with the larger Star Wars universe, I got so thrilled over. So overall, I would say I'm in a very positive camp, just with a couple issues, a couple minor things that I didn't care for as much. But yeah, in the thumbs up camp.
And Nessie?
Well,
where are you?
As much as I did like getting Boba Fett's story from where he left the Sarlacc pit to, you know, we knew he was alive because he showed up in the Mandalorian season. You know, we already know he's back, but he never, you know, they never said how he got out. Now we get how he got out of the Sarlacc pit. What has he been doing all this time? The timeline for me was a little hard to follow. I will be honest with that. Not just from a skipping back and forth standpoint, but like, how much time did he spend in the desert with the sand people? It's kind of vague, you know. You figure it's several years, you know. It's the timeline's kind of vague for me, so it makes it a little bit harder to follow, to keep a continuous storyline going. As you know, they're cutting back. I love the flashback scenes, but then tying it into what's going on currently, it kind of like fell a little short for me in that. Not to say I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I love freaking Star Wars. And once I realized, okay, in later on later on the further episodes, like, oh, okay, this isn't like Boba Fett. This is Star Wars telling a longer form story using like the POV method. Okay, we've had Din Djarin as our POV for 2 seasons now. Well, we're going to take a different look at what's going on. Let's give a different POV of voice. And like Jared said, I firmly feel that they're going to do the same thing once the Ahsoka series comes out, unless they really throw a left curve with the Obi-Wan, but I don't think so. But yeah, they're doing a POV format tied into a longer story. Once you realize that, yeah, okay, he's not going to get his own series. It's just tied in with the rest. So,
Okay.
yay.
Okay, people
And
are
I like
commenting on
everything at the Jedi Temple. Everything.
some people are commenting on what I'm wearing, so I'm just going to show. Yes, it is a full body onesie, like even stuff down here on the legs, but it is Din Djarin. Got my Grogu on my chest. It's got the.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, and that reminds me. I want to see the Grogu chapter 2. So when we get the book of Grogu, I'm just going to scream. So.
Right. Okay, so my overall thoughts. There were parts that I enjoyed, but for the most part, I was actually pretty bored by this show, which is not something I will say often about Star Wars. Like I loved the Clone Wars, I loved Mandalorian, I loved Rebels, I loved 7 out of the 9 main sequence films, and I mean, I don't ask a whole lot from my Star Wars, but this just didn't do it for me. It just did not click for me. Episode 5, which was basically just Din Djarin, like that was the highlight of the season for me. That's a character I really enjoyed. I love Grogu. Book of Baby Yoda, yeah, I'll take it.
Oh, the tiny little shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look like Mithril.
Looked like Mithril chain. Yeah, it really did.
Little Mithril chain shirt. Oh, my heart just.
Yeah. Mom just said that too.
Just a reminder that Star Wars has always been stealing stuff from Lord of the Rings.
Yes,
just saying.
Like since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But and I wish that wasn't the case. I really wanted to like it. I went into this. I started off this series with really high hopes because I like Boba Fett as a character. I like Tamir Morrison. I really enjoyed the way he played that character in Mandalorian season 2. And I was really hopeful, but this just, it fell short for me in so many ways. And maybe through this conversation, I can get my mind changed somewhat, but he did not feel like Boba Fett to me.
I felt like the end of the story was a little stiff. Maybe. I don't know, but yeah, that's.
I don't even think that's the case. I just feel like Boba Fett wouldn't do that. I mean, forgive me, I'm not the writer for Star Wars, but it did not feel like Boba Fett. And granted, he spent a lot of time with the Tuskens, and that changed his outlook on the world, and he had a near-death experience in the Sarlacc pit. And I understand all that can change you, but it felt like it did not feel like a natural progression of the character to me. And I had a lot of problems with the finale, episode 2. Like, it's impossible to program a droid to be able to shoot anything. Like running down the open street with no cover, and they just shooting at the ground behind you. And I'm sorry, John, you've heard me talk about like use cover and flanking maneuvers. Like that's an ongoing thing here. I always am analyzing the tactics, and man, I just thought the finale was kind of messy in that way. Now, there were some genuine high points in the show to me as well. Like there were things that I really did kind of like fist pump at, but I don't think they were the ones that were driving the narrative. They were those nostalgia beats, Anyway, So let's open it up. Do you all want to kind of go through it chronologically, first episode, second episode, or you want to talk about more specifically the things you really did like or some of the things you didn't?
I'm fine to go either way. Maybe we can kind of go episode by episode, but if you want to make a point to the about something larger, we can.
Hey, that works for me. I'm just going to pull it up on something so I can kind of like follow along. Let's see. Episode 1 was called Stranger in a Strange Land. It was directed by Robert Rodriguez and written by Jon Favreau. Actually, all of them were written by Favreau except for one episode, which was Favreau and Filoni together. But this was directed by Robert Rodriguez. We see Boba Fett escape the Sarlacc. He's captured by Tuskens.
Loses his armor.
Yeah, loses his armor. He does spend, it says, 5 years later. He's taking control of Jabba's criminal empire. So he was with those Tuskens for a while.
Yeah, and actually, it was one of the things I was thinking about today. I think, I'm going to say a lot of positive stuff about this show, but that would be one thing that I agree with Nessie. They could have better communicated how much time was passing with the Tuskens, because if you're not paying attention, you'd think that maybe it wasn't that long. It's because I don't think they do a great job of just communicating that. But obviously we know, just because, and he does say later on, when he was in the Sarlacc pit all those years ago. So it's there, but I think they just could have done a better job there. But talking about the opening of the episode, like, this was just so thrilling, because I was geeking out as soon as we started to see those flashbacks of young Boba. And that's also the thing I'll sidetrack right here about, as far as Boba's character. Boba, to me, has been a different character from the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi bounty hunter, for quite a long time, because we've gotten to see him as a youngster in Clone Wars.
True.
And sort of getting to see that development has kind of colored my perspective of the character. So it was great to go back to see him grieving over Django's death, and I love the fact that we had some alternate angles there, and so it felt like we were seeing the scene, but it was like a new perspective on it. And I love that close up of him holding the helmet, and then to actually see Boba escaping the Sarlacc pit, which is something that I'm not. Granted, back in the day, I was not like the biggest Boba Fett fan, but still, it's one of those things, like, you hear as a fan, like, did Boba actually escape the Sarlacc pit? And then obviously we know he did from season 2 of The Mandalorian, but to actually see it was really freaking cool. And of course there were all the jokes about how similar it was to the way Patton Oswalt described it. And that for Parks and Rec, I think, and so there's a little bit of a humorous side to it there, but I just loved seeing his hand come up out of the sand, and seeing him get to actually go through all that, and then, like, I can't comment about the opening of the show without talking about how much I freaking loved the music of this series, and the main title theme most of all. Just as he's dragged along by the Tusken Raiders, and they gather around him, and then it cuts to the title, and however the music goes, it's so good. And I have listened to that main title track like a billion times already.
Hold on. We gotta give Nessie the.
It's just all baby Grogu.
It's all the baby Yoda all the time.
Oh, baby. I mean, look at this face right here. Look at that little face.
Yeah. He's a cute little swamp goblin.
Yes.
But yeah, so I thought it was a great opening, and honestly, the flashbacks to his time at the Tuscans were some of my absolute favorite stuff of the entire season.
Okay. I'm gonna
beautiful.
counterpunch you right there. And this is probably just a personal taste thing, but I hate the god native trope. I hate it. And that's like a huge aspect of at least the first half of this show is his time with the Tuscans and him learning from the people who are less technologically advanced, but somehow their ways are truer. Like, you know, as a bit of a futurist and a technologist myself, I'm like, you know what, the past was the worst.
But it's not the past; it's the future.
No, it's actually a long time ago.
Well, technically, it is a long time ago. Now it's too far.
Get it right.
But it's not like past ways. It's the same time period. It's the present for them, and for, you know, as far as being less technologically advanced, they beat the crap out of a lot of people. You know, they're no slouches, and
it's still like, I'm going to find the wisdom in these ancient ways. You know,
I loved getting
doesn't work for me.
But I loved getting to understand the Tuscans more, and I love what these shows have done about making it so that they're not just the brutal monsters that we see in Star Wars. I refuse to call it the other thing. It's peeling back the layers and showing that these are people and the humanity, and I
did appreciate,
for lack of a better term.
You know, this is John and I were talking earlier, you know, when we were discussing the train heist or whatever. I mean, this is a Western, guys. You know, this is a Western, pulling in all the Western themes, and one of them is like, hey, you know, this guy goes out and lives in the desert. Exactly. This is Dancing with Wolves, Dancing with Dunes. I don't, something
Dancing with Tuscans. Yeah.
Dancing with Tuscans.
I will say, like, I'm not going to just crap on this show. It's not what I'm going to do. When there's something, I'm going to, like, there is a monster he fights at some point.
It's in this episode. Yeah.
It's in this episode. It's at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
That was pure Ray Harryhausen, and I freaking loved
it. Was a fantastic creature design, well animated, terrifying, cool looking, and it felt Star Warsy. So, like, credit where it's due, they killed it with that. In my opinion.
Yeah. Those damn black melons.
Which, I thought they'd have a spacier name, but it is what they are.
I mean, they're very fragmented.
What's it called?
The black melons. Yeah. We're still waiting on the name for that creature, though. That's one of the weird things on Star Wars. Is as soon as we have a new creature or something, I'm like, I need to know the name of that thing. Why have they not named it yet? But
right. And where's my action figure?
I would just say, when that Rodian was like, uncovering, I'm like, dude, stop. Stop. It's like, this isn't going to end well for you. You're not the main character.
No, you are definitely not the main character.
But yeah, Nessie, to your point, going to how this really kind of played with themes, some of the themes and ideas you see in the Western, that kind of speaks to the whole thing about what I found this first episode most of all was kind of unexpected, because the way this show was marketed to us was that this is going to be a crime story. They always kept talking about The Godfather and all those like mob movies as their influences, and there was some of that. But really, in the first episode, you're right. It really was more of a Western style, particularly with the flashbacks. And I definitely hear you, Stephen, on the whole going native trope. It didn't bother me as much just because for a couple reasons. One, I know some people have the idea of like the whole like white savior complex mixed in with that. In this case, I didn't think it was applied as much because Tamura Morrison himself is an indigenous actor.
Right. He
And-
is Maori, is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and clearly this was very important to him. He had a big influence in the whole design of the like the gaffy stick that he ultimately makes, and like he was bringing himself to this role, and
maybe I'm sorry. Didn't mean to
worry.
interrupt. Go ahead.
No worries. And I was going to say, and the thing that I really found valuable about the Tusken scenes that ultimately emerged, not as much in this episode because he spends most of it as a prisoner, but wasn't so much the idea that they know their ways are better, they know the ways of the land. It was more ultimately the sense of community that he felt.
And nothing without a tribe, which is something he says later on.
And we'll get into it more in the second episode, but the three characters who kind of stand in for the Tuskens, the chief, the warrior, and the child, are, I think, all reflective of Boba Fett himself in some way in the stages in which we see him. You know, I won't take credit for this. This was a point I heard discussed on both Force Center and Star Wars Explained, but the idea that the child represents who Boba Fett was when we saw him in Attack of the Clones. The warrior represents kind of who he was as the infamous bounty hunter, the loner, who could take any job and defeat anyone in battle. And then the chief represents kind of who he wants to become as more of a leader. So, and they didn't hit us over the head with that image. I just thought it actually worked quite well.
I will say that, Jared, just following up on, when you were saying, where the idea came from, if I ever have any, insightful thing to say about Star Wars, chances are I've ripped it off of Force Center. So.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give them a plug. They're great.
Yeah. I mean, lovely human beings. Oh, God, I'm trying to... Ken Knapsack and
Joseph
Scrimshaw.
Yeah. And Jennifer Landa.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't listened to them in a long time, but so I don't know Jennifer.
Yeah, well, Jennifer hasn't been on as much for a while now because she has stuff going on in her life, but all three of them are just utterly fantastic. And I say so all the love and affection in the world, but I love when Joseph, when Ken will say something and Joseph will be like, yeah. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So now we plugged Force Center sufficiently.
A fine Star Wars based podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So deconstructing themes and whatnot, that's always going to get me too. And I really do though you have laid it out very sort of succinctly with the way they reflect this idea that he wants to be part of a community. And 5 years can change a person. I changed over pretty significantly over the course of 5 years at one point in my life. So I can get all that. And I'm not a person that gets hung up on this isn't the story that I wanted. I try to look at the story that you've given me and find what I can there to enjoy. But I'm not going to lie, this is not the story that I wanted. I wanted a crime lord.
Yeah,
and
the crime.
The neighborhood watch.
Yeah, we get introduced to some of the places that he's running to. Also, some other side players. We get the oh man, we see the Gamorrean guards back. We also visit the sanctuary, which is
and we meet my wife, Jennifer Beals. All right, R.I.P.
Yeah, and what a great character she plays too. She's just
and naturally, that's one of the really nice things is that she ended up not being at all the type of character that I pegged her as in the first episode, because I thought she had more sort of devious intentions in mind, and it turns out that she really was all about providing sanctuary for people in Mos Espa, and I wish we'll get to that more later on, but I wish we were going to get more of her. But
Yeah. You could tell she was really out for like peaceful resolutions to whatever situation is going on because, war is bad for business.
I will say that from one of, even though I am very positive about the show, I'll go ahead and voice, sort of quibbles when I have them. I think that, like, I wish they had done a better job with the scale of Mos Espa. We did get those, great wide shots showing it, but then we stuck very closely to like the center of town, and it seemed like we were going to the same couple places, and I don't know that they did a great job of selling Mos Espa as the enormous place that it is. So and I feel like they did a better job with that on scale in later episodes when it switched over to Din Djarin's point of view, and like the sort of spaceport or whatever it was he was on, that felt, enormous, and you had the feeling of it wasn't confined just to one little space. So I wish that they had distributed that sort of, I don't know if it was budget or if it was just resources, a little bit better, because I would have liked Mos Espa to feel bigger than it did. But,
I think some of that is just as incredible as the volume is, some of that is the limits of this being Star Wars television, not Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
The scale was always going to be more epic on the big screen. But I mean, I do hear what you're saying about kind of the scale of Mos Espa, although it was fun to see different parts of it than we had seen before in the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And I do think that they did a decent job of making it showing the different populations and making it feel more lived in. But the scale I noticed as well. But I was also very happy to see Max Rebo also survived the sail barge.
Yeah,
got the job.
He's not in there when the explosion happens later on. So nope. I feel like he's escaped once again. So
yep,
Max Rebo, he's a lucky guy.
Yeah, he's been around.
Maybe a little too lucky.
But no, it was great because there was all that speculation of, well, is it the exact same? Guys are just same species, and then that episode where she goes, "Hit it, Max!" Nope. I could hear like every Star Wars fan collectively clapping. Yeah, it's Max.
I want to point out something else I loved from I think it was episode 1, might have been 2, but I'll say it now. As of somebody who is something of a technology lover and a bit of a futurist, did anybody spot the Boston Dynamics cameo?
Oh yeah,
I remember hearing about it. Yeah,
their Spot RoboDog is definitely, there's somebody tending a couple of them walking through Mos Espa, and they're not like central in the shot, but they're definitely there. And Boston Dynamics makes some incredible robots when they finally rise up and take over the world, and we become meat batteries like in the Matrix. It's going to be Boston Dynamics that does it.
I do also I want to mention a couple of the players that we get to see in the first episode. I love that Matt Berry is the droid. Just especially since
Daytona.
Yeah, we've all been watching What We Do in the Shadows, some of us longer than others, I know, but
yeah, some of us much longer than others.
So I didn't know it was him at first, but when I saw the name in the credits, I was like, oh yeah, and then I went back to watch it. I'm like, yep, that's him. But yeah, no, that's a joy. And also I really, even though I'm not sure how I feel about and this doesn't just go for this show, but for The Mandalorian as well, the sort of broader humor that is brought to these shows as opposed to, say, the films. But like, still, I did appreciate the comedy throughout that we got from the mayor's major domo. I don't know the actors' names, but like,
David Pasquesi. He's a famous improv comedian. He was on Veep, I believe. He's done a couple of things, but yeah, that character, I thought I was going to dislike him after his first appearance. He grew on me.
Oh yeah,
particularly,
I did enjoy him. The Twi'lek who worked for the mayor and was like always using the flowery language and being very conciliatory. And
I don't see an appointment.
Oh yeah, and the joke about the wither, the ongoing joke about the wither was I enjoyed that.
Yeah. But and then like, and then the stuff about like this is awkward. I used to work for him. It's more awkward for him. It was really good. And now I'm just going to start reciting lines. But like when the major domo says, there is still a matter of tribute. And he's like, I'm confused. It was great. I loved all that stuff. Which, by the way, I want to comment. Like, one of the things I loved is that Tamora Morrison did. So for me, he did such a great job with his performance because there was a lot of, gravitas and weight behind his performance and for the emotional moments and all that. But then he wasn't afraid to switch it over into comedy. One of my favorite sort of gags that starts to develop is, him sort of reciting his. I love when he's, holding up the droid and he goes, "Do you know who I am? I am Boba Fett." And it starts to become humorous by that point, which I love it when the stuff, it's not afraid to sort of poke fun at itself. It kind of reminds me of Firefly with the whole, with Mal's sense of humor, like in Serenity when he goes, "You want to run this ship?" "Yes." "Well, you can't." that type of not taking yourself too seriously, and so that was really funny. Plus, I think that droid in that episode is an alumni of Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. It's an LAP rabbit droid. They show up quite frequently in Clone Wars. Although this one immediately became a meme with the whole sobbing shuts down.
Yeah, the rat catcher droid was very cute.
Yeah, it was very funny, very cute, chasing womp rats.
And the mechanic.
I'm going to jump ahead into episode 2 again because there is something that they brought in episode 2 that I really, really loved. And that was a new character called Chrysanthemum. I adored that character design and like the choices they made to make him like what Chewbacca, but what if ultra violent?
And he is, and now
bigger.
Jared, you might know this better than I, but he is a Legends character, right?
Well, he is not a Legends character. He is a character who originated in the new canon comics.
Oh, he is? Okay.
The Dr. Aphra line and the Darth Vader line.
Okay. I was not aware.
Yeah, no, I mean, but the thing is, that's what the show did so well. You didn't need to know it was that character. Like, because he served his role in the show exactly as he needed to serve it. And you got the sense that he and Boba Fett have history, which they do, but they didn't need to say that they didn't need to point out the fact that he was a character who had been introduced before. It's kind of like Cad Bane, honestly. But it's, I thought that he was extremely well used, and the whole, like, the idea, we'll get into it more later, but the idea of trauma, quite clearly he's a traumatized Wookiee. We always hear about the Wookiees were enslaved and brutalized by the Empire. But when all we see is Chewbacca, we don't see quite as much of that because Chewbacca seems to have a pretty solid head on his shoulders. Chrysanthemum was clearly like made to fight for the sport of others, and that's not something that you just shake off. and I like that they explored that a little bit with him too.
Yeah, for the record, this is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
God,
Like-
so
like-
badass.
Yeah, and like he is a beast, and I love that they gave him like the black and white dread beard pieces,
Yeah.
and he's got armor on, which is not something Chewbacca ever did. He looks so cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, great costume design on that.
And,
Yeah.
and we got Hutts. That was another thing.
Mhm.
The twins.
Although I will.
flipped. I just flipped out when this happened because I suddenly realized that we had not seen live action Hutts since the Phantom Menace, and
Mhm.
it was astonishing to see how far they've come in terms of visual effects. And so when I saw them, I was like, man, just remember, where we started off with CG Hutts with the 1997 special edition of Star Wars, and where it is now. They were amazing, and I loved the drums and the build up to them. It was so tense, and just they did such a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is more for the next episode, but one of my disappointments with the series, very few disappointments, was that they essentially exited the narrative quite quickly. But because they were a cool addition, they really just ultimately brought in the Rancor. But that's not a problem for this episode, because this episode 2, was actually my favorite of the entire series.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do not think we've seen the last of the Hutts.
I don't think so.
No.
I hope not. Like again.
There's a huge imbalance of power right
the
now.
Underworld. Give me that Star Wars Underworld story.
Well, the thing
somehow, some way, please.
Well, the thing also, like, this is not the period of where the underworld in the Star Wars universe is thriving, and as a matter of fact, it's kind of on its way out in terms of how it was known.
Okay, I know what you're going to say, John, and we're going to agree. Give me a Kira Maul.
Yeah, we need to go back in time a little bit.
Go back.
Yeah, and I know there was a popular theory based, I think, on the style of the music being similar to the Crimson Dawn theme in the main Boba Fett theme. The idea that ultimately it was going to be revealed that Kira was behind, that in Crimson Dawn were behind the Pikes. I was a believer of that theory. I would have liked to see it happen, but I kind of get once it became clear what the show actually was later on, I understood why they didn't feel that they had time.
And I'm not sure, like, is that where Kira's character kind of is in the comics? Because I haven't been keeping up with.
I don't really read the comics either. It's one of my few blind spots. There are just too many of them, and some of them it's hard to keep up. But they did recently reintroduce Kira in the comic, the Darth Vader run set between Empire and Return of the Jedi. And then they gave her own series in this ongoing War of the Bounty Hunters, Crimson Reign kind of stuff. So at least at the time of between Empire and Jedi, we knew that she was still alive and out there. And some people thought that Emilia Clarke might show up because she is already working with Disney Plus on another MCU show, Secret Invasion. But again, once it became clear what the show actually was, I'm like, okay, I can see why they didn't think that was necessary for this story. The Pikes were enough.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, no, it was interesting for me just because the Pikes have been built up throughout, Clone Wars and various other things, but I don't think I'd actually ever seen them without their masks on.
Yeah,
their actual faces. That was
people.
Yeah, that was surprising
why
to me.
On the desert? You are literally a fish out of water. You do not belong there.
But yeah, no, like I don't know that I was really expecting, a Kira reveal, but then I heard people mention, I'm like, yeah, give me some Emilia more Emilia Clarke in Star Wars. But like this was about establishing like, you know, who Boba is, who he wants to be. I don't think the idea was to necessarily like, I don't think we've seen the big bad of this sort of corner of the galaxy with his story yet. I think this was about giving him, you know, an obstacle to overcome, and then, you know, bringing in one of his oldest, shall we say, acquaintances in Cad Bane, to really drive those themes home. So, but yeah, anyway, back to episode 2. And no, like I remember when you told me, Jared, about episode 2 being your favorite. I had only seen the episodes through once at that point. So I actually, when I went back to rewatch, I completely got, you know, why you said that. And I actually think it's probably the best episode in terms of, you know, representing the show as like the book of Boba Fett proper. And because it's exciting, it's emotional, it's really driving home, you know, like Boba, his discovery of like who he is and his relationship with the Sand People. And I am just so in love with those sequences of, you know, with the stick and with him getting sort of the Tusken Raider, you know, and clothing. And the music over those scenes is so beautiful. It's just,
I mean, Lizard cut up his nose,
and he's apologized, and he's like,
God.
I'm sorry, I think I was fault. It's like, dude, it wasn't your fault. But and then later on, when he's like, I thought it was part of the dream. I love that.
And it just climbed back out of him like it was nothing. You know, like, let's put this in my pocket for another day.
I thought it was so beautiful, and like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to fight Stephen on. I'm going to try not to fight Stephen on this point, but like, I did love all the stuff with him and the Tuskens, and you know, I love the episode ending with the dancing around the campfire, and it was just so beautiful and so just evocative and just filled with the sense of, this is a character changing, you know, this is you know, someone who's, you know, truly taking this into his heart and becoming a new person, and it just really,
I mean, he's never really had a family. He had like 5 million brothers that he hated because of, you know, the situation, like they're clones, they're not my real brothers. His dad, who, you know, died when he was 10, and then it's just been him his entire life from that point on, trying to put a family together, you know.
And most of them have been horrible people, bounty hunters and
people. You know, and he finally falls in with this group that are like, they're not horrible people, you know, they're just people trying to survive in a harsh world.
And this is why, part of why this episode was my favorite, because of those themes and those ideas, and also just the ending, like the stuff in the flashbacks with the vision sequence. I love the vision sequence. I just thought we haven't really seen anything quite like that in Star Wars before. Basically, it was kind of a hallucinogenic trip, but it also kind of gave us a sense of, you know, we saw the flashes of him in his armor, then out of his armor. We saw him getting strangled by these branches, these chains he's trying to break, and then he does, and it like intermixes with images of him in the Sarlacc pit, and then ultimately at the end he breaks free and he comes away with this piece of wood that he's going to use ultimately to fashion his own gaffy stick. And I just thought that entire sequence was extraordinarily well directed by Steph Green, was the director of this episode. Her first outing on Star Wars. I thought she did a great job. She's done other shows I've loved, like The Americans as well. And just ultimately, as John noted, like it culminating in that sequence where after he finishes his gaffy stick and they start dancing around the fire, using movements which of course are inspired by Tamora Morrison's heritage as a Maori, like the haka dance, but still making it, you know, new and different and unique. And when that camera like pans out on all of them dancing around like that, united in their sense of community, and then it cuts to black, that I was just like, that was great.
Yeah, and I want to say that, like, one of the things that I really loved about these early episodes was the fact that traditionally you'd have the flashback stuff, but you'd end the episode back on like the present storyline. But very often they were just ending the episode on the flashbacks, which, and I said this a couple weeks ago, I think really, at least for these early episodes, the you know, the quote unquote flashback was really the A story of the show. And I just thought that was beautiful. And as far as like the dancing and like the, you know, the relationship to Maori, you know, culture and all that, like that struck a chord with me, especially because I spent all these years in love with Lord of the Rings and with the making of Lord of the Rings and the production. So I knew all about that, and the fact that, you know, all the Maori people on set for those productions would bless the productions by doing a Maori dance at the beginning. And so like that just sort of sent chills down my spine because I knew where it was coming from. And yeah, it's just, I thought it was sort of, for that reason, it was kind of chilling, but beautiful and just fantastic.
Yeah, and then the action was in the episode that was pretty dang good as well. You know, you refer to it as the train job. Like it's it was. I'm always a sucker for a good train heist. You know, I love the one in Solo on Vandor, and then this was a little bit more straightforward. But I thought that it was.
I love that droid. The droid on
the droid just noped right out of there.
And not Boba's first train heist, because I remember watching in Clone Wars where one of his first solo jobs was a train heist.
Yeah.
So
wait, but we've skipped over like a bantha.
Oh yes. If people remember nothing else from this show, they will remember that. Because it was just it's an instantly iconic piece of Star Wars comedy.
All right, so let's move on to some episode 3 talk. I don't think there's as much to say here. This is where he sort of like convinces the modded bikers to become like episode 1. He gets Gamorreans on side. Episode 2, he's starting the process of getting Chrysanthemum on side. Episode 3,
well, first, before we get into any of the sort of stuff of what was going on in the quote unquote present storyline, the episode starts off with again like the music where he's, you know, riding out and, you know, in his sort of full, you know, and Tuscan glory, and I love the stuff they did with the theme. It's just sort of the slow build, and it has like a sense of majesty about it. And then he goes to negotiate, you know, or to get money from the
Pikes.
And of course, you know, anybody who remembers about the Pikes, where you shouldn't cross them, already knows what they probably plan to do. And, you know, while he's gone, they go in and massacre the Tuscans, leading him and us temporarily to believe that it's the bikers. And for me, this was sort of the emotional, you know, crux of the episode. One of the reasons why I said the middle section of the season kind of had its bumps for me is because, there's some interesting developments in this episode, but it's wasn't for me centered around something personal and emotional to Boba the way the prior two episodes were, except for this bit at the beginning. But the rest of the episode is centered around the bikers, and we don't yet know that these are the people that Boba went to save Fennec. So in retrospect, all this stuff being included makes sense. But I remember watching in this episode, it wasn't as gripping to me as the first two. But in retrospect, I still like it. I know a lot of people had some less than glowing things to say about the bikers, but for me, it felt very George Lucas. Like, this is something he totally would have done and would have loved. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. Not my favorite episode, though.
Yeah, I will say that if episode 2 was my favorite episode of the series, episode 3 was my least favorite. And there were kind of different. It was for different reasons than kind of came there on the online discourse. I did think that the decision to kill the Tuskens off screen upset a lot of people for reasons because they were, because they had been deepened up so much, and because of the connection to the idea of the native and indigenous peoples, and some people were rightly angry about that, and those criticisms I thought were incredibly fair and valid. I get why they did it, because it serves Boba Fett's story, and he needed that push to get him where he needed to go. But I do see why people had problems with that. I was not as mad about the speed bike gang, or not the speed bike, the mod gang. I know people were like, what the heck is this? It's exactly as you said, John. I get people not liking the look. I do think it was inspired by real life mod culture, and is something that George Lucas would have very much done and enjoyed had he been making a show like this. But some people just, if you don't like the look of it, that's totally fair. I did think it was, some of the criticism of that front were a little over the top, but I'm not going to invalidate people's feelings on that. And again, I thought this episode was probably the weakest, both because the past story was, had the kind of heart-wrenching moment of the loss of the Tuskens, and because the present day story kind of felt a little bit like it was spinning its wheels at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about this. Again, most of the show kind of didn't hold much for me. There were highlights here and there. But this episode, I think especially, was just kind of like, well, I gotta watch this so I can watch the next one and know what the heck's going on.
I'm so sorry.
But I was not a fan of, like, the look on most of them is fine, but there's that one lady who looks like Space Pat Benatar from 1983 with her, lycra pants, and I'm just like, no, not feeling that look. But
no,
again, that's a personal taste thing. That's an aesthetic thing. Like, people are going to feel how they feel about that. The eye likes what it likes, and it's fine.
I like the inclusion of the mods and the new mod culture that's kind of taking shape, because, the kids, what do the kids do to get back at their parents? They do things that they absolutely, know that they'll hate. And, their parents were the generation that went through the Clone Wars. They have this aversion, a lot of them, to droids in general. So, yeah, my kid just added in, like, it's not like a tattoo. This is like an actual, you're adding in mechanics. So their parents were absolutely horrified by this, and that's great. But it's like transhumanism. It's ultra modern. It's what all the new kids are doing. What are the kids doing? Well, it's either spice or mods. So
let's go with mods are better.
I know I heard some people saying they felt like it didn't fit with the Star Wars aesthetic. I'm like, what
I
Star Wars have you?
disagree.
What Star Wars have you been watching? Maybe it's different for Tatooine, but it certainly isn't that different
Yeah,
for
like
other parts of the galaxy.
yeah, like look at what's going on in Coruscant. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
The entire
yeah.
galaxy of fashion. I can say I did not love that look, but that I don't think that invalidates that it's a real look to be had in Star Wars. It didn't feel out of place. I was just like, nope, not feeling that one. But like I feel that way about real world fashion too. Oh, I like
And
that.
they've been
I don't
doing
like
this.
that.
They've been doing
But-
this since Darth Vader put on a mask. This is freaking Star Wars. This is what we've been dealing with this for years now. So it's just finally made its way out to the Outer Rim as like a fun hobby for the kids.
and again, I know I'm not the only one to make this observation, but like just the bites themselves, and you think about George Lucas doing American Graffiti and stuff. This felt right at home with something he would have made an homage to.
Like.
Yeah. So I perfectly fine with that. I just felt like, I'm kind of with you, Jared. It felt like this story was kind of spinning its wheels a little bit here. Although I did get a chuckle out of the fact that this is the episode where I'm like, okay, we're just going to have some actor cameos that don't attempt to disguise
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo
Yeah.
and oh god, what's the other actor's name? I'm drawing a blank. It's Stephen Root. It's like, yep, that's Stephen Root. But
the guy who got a Rancor.
Since you brought it up, John, regarding Danny Trejo, I will say that my favorite aspect of this particular episode was everything with the Rancor.
Yeah.
And not specifically, I mean, I loved seeing Danny Trejo as a Rancor keeper. I thought that's just perfect, and of course he's going to show up in a
Yeah, it was great.
But specifically the idea of the bonding scene with the Rancor, and the idea that we've always known it as this terrifying beast from Return to the Jedi, and he kind of talking about how it's actually a very emotionally complex creature, can be very loving. It's just people see it as a terrifying monster, so they breed it for battle. But it's kind of like Boba himself, there's more to it. And it was just cute seeing him scratch it behind the ear. And
I am going to say, and I'm not going to say too much to stay away from spoilers for certain other things for certain people here, but I did get bummed that it wasn't Moochie. Just going to say it.
I just hope Moochie is safe and happy somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there was also some great comedy in the scene, the idea when 8D8 Matt Berry comes in and it's like Lord Boba, and he's like, not now, I'm busy. And what he's busy with is petting his new Rancor like it's a dog. But and then also we get the checkoffs. Boba will ride this Rancor thing, and so it's and we all knew that was going to happen, but it was.
It's like I've ridden these 10 times as large,
10 times its size, the reference to the Star Wars Holiday Special. And I also, just in terms of lore stuff, I love that they made a reference to the Witches of Dathomir used to ride Rancors. Because that is from Legends, that from the book The Courtship of Princess Leia, where Dathomir were introduced.
See, I didn't even know that, but I know the Witches of Dathomir, and so say anything in any part of Star Wars that references Clone Wars, and you're gonna, you're going to bring joy to my heart. So, but that's really interesting because I did not know that.
Yeah, that book is a little weird, but it's got some cool stuff in it.
Yeah, this is another monster that we've seen the other side of, the Tuscans. That was part, that was one thing we got to see, that they're, can be good and kind and loving people just like anybody else. And then here's the Rancor, big scary monster that ate things in Star Wars. Poor, Una. And now it's just a big old scritchy thing that you want to scratch him behind his ears and be friends with, except he'd probably eat my arm off.
Yeah,
just
because you
see-
weren't the first person he saw.
Right, he didn't imprint on me. But that's just going along with the theme that
So basically, was that Rancor blindfolded its entire life? Or at least it never saw a person up to that point?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't know. That's terrible, but it kind of speaks to
It is. And
the-
like I'm gonna have a little thought on the Rancor, and then we'll do the mid-roll. But my thought has to do with the finale, but I'm just gonna get it out of the way now. It felt unearned that he was able to ride that thing at the end without, basically they told us that he would in episode 3, and in episode 7 he's able to guide it to climb up buildings and do all exactly the stuff he wants it to do. And
Yes, but we didn't really. That was just happening off screen for 2 episodes while we were following Din Djarin.
Show don't tell. That's
Yeah,
all I'm going to say.
I think that I would have liked to see a scene of him trying to ride the
At
Rancor.
least
Well,
one.
I think that this will, and we'll get into it after the mid-roll, but I think that's one of the things that got sacrificed when they decided to do their 2-episode detour into more Mandalorian focused stories. I think if this had been all Boba Fett, we would have seen more of him trying to ride the Rancor. We would have gotten little more about the internal politics of the day.
And they made the choices they made, but like I can't not see it that way,
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Din took longer to learn to ride a blurg than Boba did learning
on
to
screen.
ride on screen.
Down screen, yeah.
Okay, so let's do the mid roll.
And the King Kong callback was not missed at all.
Yeah, for sure. I love this. Boba Fett is a horse girl. That's hilarious. Thank you, Trish, for that. Thank you very much. Brain. Oh yeah, mid-roll. This is the part where we don't go anywhere. Like there's still plenty more conversation to be had, but like we're gonna pay the bills and give some plugs. So we'll start with, please hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I would take it as like a personal favor if you were to do that. Our viewership is pretty well plateaued and has been for a long time, but you can always help us creep upward one more sub at a time. And yes, we want you, and we want you to come back. So that's the best way. Hit the subscribe, and you'll get notifications when we're doing stuff, which is every Sunday.
And if you've already subscribed, but you haven't subscribed to John Webster Film, do that.
Do that. And the Unspun Yarn. All those links are down in the description. Gonna make sure I gotta shout out our patrons because they're awesome. Our Patreon High Council is led by our alpha patron, one Mr. Ridiculous Ed Tollett, this guy right here. Sean, I know you're probably about to get off work or maybe just got off work, but drive safe, buddy. We love you. Thank you so much. Our Patreon High Council also consists of Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, as well as Sixto Sounds, aka JP the Axe Grinder. And they are supported by the lords and ladies of the realm, including Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, Arch-Maester Emma, and Kate, Mistress of the House of Books. This Kate right here. Thank you, patrons. We love you guys. If you would like to get a Patreon shout out every week, the link to our Patreon is down in the description. And they do things like they pay for our streaming software. We have an ongoing Zoom where if you are a member of our Slack group, you can join the Zoom anytime you want. And often people hanging out. We do watch parties there was a watch party last night for The Thing, from the 1982 version of The Thing. There's a horror lovers channel, and they had a watch party for that movie last night. We play D&D on there all the time, and frequently there's just people chilling, having a fun conversation with each other. So, and if you would like to get in on that kind of action, just send me an email to this email address right here, There are other rules, but like if you follow rule number 1, you'll probably be fine. And yeah, so please get in on that action and come talk and hang out with us. Like other channels have Discord groups, we are a circle of friends here. Like we hang out during the week and talk, and we would love for you to be a part of that. If this nerdy corner of the internet sounds like a place you might fit in, yeah, come on over and have a good time.
Yep.
Okay, Nessie.
Yes.
No, John.
Hashtag sometime in March.
Okay. We're going to start with John, actually. John, go. What's coming up for you?
Okay, so there's nothing coming up on John Webster film, at least nothing scheduled as of yet. But next Saturday, don't have an exact time yet, but it's going to be on Saturday. I will be over on Cecilia's channel, Deconstructing, and we will be talking about the 2005 Keira Knightley movie Pride and Prejudice. So you all know you want to be there. So tune in.
I've heard of that movie. I like that movie.
I thought you might.
I actually just watched it last night.
Klinitzky says, John, you're the best.
Thank you. But yeah, no, other than that, what was it, last week or the week before? I don't know.
It was last week.
Last week I had a discussion on the movie Stardust with my friends Aaron and AK. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I had never seen that film. You got me to watch it so I could participate in the chat, and I'm really glad I did because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, Nessie, what do you got coming up? Anything in particular that you've got in mind that you maybe want to talk about?
Yeah. Yes. Stephen and I are going to be talking about these guys, hopefully in March at a time that we can agree upon.
You got that high dollar alternate art cover, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
And my son gave me this for Christmas. I have to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
and Emily
wanting...
of the Erie is going to be joining us for that as well. So we have
Emily.
To get
Emily of the Erie. Yeah, y'all know Emily by now. She's like my go-to D&D content. You know, if I want to talk about D&D, I call Emily.
Yeah, she's great. I love her. So we'll hopefully get that done for March for you guys.
Fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to it. Now, next week, I've been hyping this up now for a little while, and I sent a message yesterday just to be like, hey, are we still on? Just want to make sure, because this person has been very hard to get. But next week, it'll be just me because I'm doing an interview, and I know that nerd with the one, the only Maester Mary of the Learned Hands podcast, who I've been trying to get as she has been a guest on this channel in the past. It's been a good long while. She's basically, I don't think I've had her since she started her own podcast, which they started basically not long after the pandemic kicked in. So it's been a good minute since Mary's been along, but she is going to be the I Know That Nerd for next week, and I cannot be more hyped for it. She is genuinely such a lovely person. And yeah, if you don't know the Learned Hands podcast, you will not find a better legal examination of A Song of Ice and Fire anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It is a pair of lawyers who are doing their thing, examining specifically the writings of George R.R. Martin. And it's really great. They do charitable work, like they have a Slack you can get in with if you make a charitable donation to a legal charity, and they're just really great people. I had half of the Learned Hands on before. Clint of the Learned Hands podcast has had, and I Know That Nerd done with him, but we're finally getting Mary, you know, full-time job, podcast, 2 toddlers. we're very sympathetic to the constraints on her time, but I'm just super glad that she's going to be here, and that will be next Sunday.
Yay.
Anything else we need to bring up?
Mm.
Myself and Nessie and John will all be at Ice and Fire Con in April in Ohio. If you want to meet us, I know several people who in the chat are going to be there. Kate is going to be there. Kelly is going to be there. Aaron, who was on your channel last week, will be there. John. So like, yeah, a lot of for we three dragons will be there, as well as all of our dragon, or not all, but a lot of our dragon kin will be there as well.
Aw, dragon kin. What a great word. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, hey Cass, I'm sorry. Like it's not like you're forbidden from coming.
Yeah, I just can't believe it's coming up so soon.
Yeah, it's like less than 2 months away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I don't know how much room is left, if tickets are left or whatever. But yeah, I got you, buddy. I'm sorry.
Are we going to be streaming live from Ice and Fire Con or no?
Probably not. We'll probably not be, because I'm flying home that Sunday. I'm only like going to be off the 2 days. Anyway, I think that's it. We should get back to Book of Boba Fett and talk about, I guess we're moving on to episode 4, titled The Gathering Storm. By the way, episode 3 was also directed by Robert Rodriguez, who directed episode 1. Episode 4 was directed by Ken Tancharoen. I'm sure I butchered that name. My apologies. Kevin Tancharoen, I'm guessing. And this is the one where Boba goes to get his ship back, and Fennec helps him.
And this was a Return of the Jedi fans like dream come true. I was grinning this entire episode.
And then he
just
goes back for his armor. Whoops.
Yeah, the only thing that I think this episode like suffers from, and I guess it's no small thing, it's the lack of forward momentum in like the present day. The only thing that really happens in present day is he has a meeting with the leaders of and that sets up bringing in Mando, which if you know your music cues you can spot coming. But then the rest of the episode is all about Boba and Fennec, which I really loved. It was basically an entire flashback episode, and it was just fun. I loved seeing the familiar droid in Jabba's palace, and
that jerk droid, the one that did the intake on R2 and C-3PO. It was cool to see him, not gonna lie.
And then of course the Sarlacc pit, which actually I thought was kind of clever the way they did it, because I'm very much a theatrical version of the Star Wars trilogy kind of guy, and so you're approaching, you're like, well, wait, which version of the Sarlacc is this? Because they go in and it looks just like the traditional Sarlacc, but oh no, here comes the beat, it's coming out to get you. And it was just really, and it was really cool to see like inside, like how all that works, because
you got a front row seat on it, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then there was some, like, again, some good comedy. I know on Force Center they called this like a very Clone Wars episode, because you had like the moments of high tension and drama, counterbalanced by like silly comedy. as well. So, like I mentioned earlier, the bit with Boba holding up the droid, going, "I am Boba Fett," and then you know, when they're over the Sarlacc, and you know, he's like, "Next time, don't touch my buttons."
Yeah, don't touch my button.
Yeah.
That what?
And the look that it does, I'm like,
I know, right?
really?
That entire sequence was a straight up horror sequence. Like the fact, like that Scarlac was freaking scary, man. Like,
Yeah.
and but of course, I love that the way that they ultimately destroy the Sarlacc is with the seismic charge from Attack of the Clones.
The
and
gift that just keeps on giving.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the best sounds in Star Wars, and one of the best visuals too when they get a chance. But it's the whole idea, like, because you know, in the whole legend story, everyone was like, "Oh, Boba blasted his way out of the Sarlacc. He must have, you know, killed it when he did that." And the thing is, we see it on how he actually escaped. He basically cuts a hole through the side and then crawls up through the sand, and it's a much more like muted but realistic thing. But he got that sucker in the end.
Seismic charge, baby. Right. Star Wars has a lot of really great sound design. It's one of the things that has been a strength for it really since its inception. But that seismic charge, the way that they sort of neutralize all sound right before that wow goes off.
Well, and it's like there's a generation, there's definitely a generation of us who like had fun playing that Attack of the Clones DVD over and over on those scenes with the surround sound just to get that killer sound effect. And
no, did you, John?
But
maybe
like,
Jared too. Actually, even what I know about Jared, probably him too.
I mean, I definitely rewound that sequence at least a dozen times. I probably didn't have surround sound at that time. I was too poor, but
it was pretty great. But yeah, so like every bit we've gotten with the seismic charge, you know, over the course of Mandalorian and now Boba Fett, it's just like it delights my, you know, my DT heart. And I have my issues with Attack of the Clones, but the seismic charge was never one of them. Right.
That sound design is pretty cool. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's. Actually, I will restate something you said, John, that will lead us into episode 5.
Well, wait. I don't want to go there just
okay.
yet, because I just quickly, like, there's just important stuff that gets, you know, talked about between Boba and Fennec, you know, which goes back to, I think, what we've been talking about when Boba says, you know, you won't get far without a tribe, and you know, and I think that very much does go into you know, the next, and here I am like leading up to episode 5, but what I mean is that's the theme that's at play in these next episodes, even when we don't see Boba. Very much these ideas of found family and having a tribe and not going it alone, and I just think it's important, and I just like this emotional bond that's forged between Boba and Fennec. I love when she says, you know, I'll you know, I'll hang around for the ride, and
go along for the ride.
Yeah, go along for the ride. Yeah, it's just really nice, and I love their, you know, action stuff and Jabba's palace, and yeah, there's much more I'd probably want to go into, but we have to, like, I know we have to make sure that we give enough time for these next couple episodes.
Yeah, like we're getting into the part that I liked the best, and I really did like. I was that Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme when I heard that musical cue.
Yeah,
because, like, you know, credits can get by muscle if you know where to look, and you get that Mandalorian music cue, and I'm like, oh baby, how long are they going to make me wait? And the answer is about 4 seconds into the start of the next episode. Like, that has been, like, I feel like Marvel is doing this in their TV shows as well lately, but The Mandalorian is doing it, and the Book of Boba Fett did it. They're like, we're doing the thing, and we're doing it now, and we're not going to drag it out. No, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
And which lets us not dance around it and build it up and build it up and build it up. No, just we knew we were probably getting Din Djarin this episode.
Yep, here he is.
Here's Din Djarin.
This episode was just like a continuous unveiling of surprises in terms of how they were doing this, because like I went into this episode expecting to see him, but just not right away. And we got him right away. Okay, he's gonna have the cold open, and and then we're gonna come back. Wait, no, we're still with him. What's going on? Oh my God, it's the armor. What? No way. And it just kept going. I'm like, oh, so this is the episode. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, he's using the Darksaber. Shit.
And he kind of cuts himself with it, which is such a great little bit, because it's like every single one of us has wanted a lightsaber, but we all know we kill ourselves with it. And it's like he's a little too skilled for that, but he's not a Jedi.
Yeah. Good thing he's wearing Beskar. It might have been way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and this is skipping ahead a little bit, but as far as the Darksaber goes, I love the fact that he's having trouble connecting with it. And so for him, it's getting heavier and heavier. Whereas if you go back to Rebels with Sabine, where she says it's getting lighter.
Lighter.
He was connecting to it.
He just like that.
Yeah. So I love that. And and there was just so much great mythology and like diving into the lore, and we got to see the Night of 1,000 Tears, and like
that sucked, by the way. I mean, it was beautifully, but man, it hurt my heart.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Which, and this was one of the questions I had when back at the end of Mando season 1, when Moff Gideon referred to the Siege of Mandalore. I'm like, wait a second, is he referring to the Siege of Mandalore that I've been waiting to see, and that's happening in Clone Wars very soon? But no, it's like, this is now, that was the Siege of Mandalore. It's been like prior, anything called the Siege of Mandalore before that was like superseded by this, because it was such a brutal, all-encompassing, destructive event that like, nope, this is, the big, horrific chapter of Mandalore's history. And
Episode 5 also saw the return of the best Star Wars character of all time, Peli Motto.
Okay.
The best. Dated a Jawa once. I'm working on me right now.
I'm working on myself.
I rolled my eyes a little bit at it.
So good.
When she was first introduced back in Mandalorian, I kind of rolled my eyes at the character a little bit, but I've fallen head over heels in love with Amy Sedaris's Peli Motto, and it's fantastic.
And this again is what I'm talking about. Like, these shows have like done comedy a different way. It's very broad, and it's a different style than what we saw in Star Wars previously. And I don't always know how I feel about it, but then like Peli shows up and I'm grinning and like, no, I'm in. I love it. But yeah, no, I love also like talking about her and how funny she is. Like this episode switches gears. It's like the first half is very serious and very mythological and diving into all that stuff, and then he leaves and nope, now it's time for some fun and comedy. Oh my God, the Naboo starfighter, like oh my God,
beautiful. Way to fight back to the prequels.
That will be a figure very soon, and I will probably be buying it. But what was so great? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, Jared, go ahead. You've got a point to make.
No, I was just going to say that what was so interesting about this episode, aside from the fact that it was an episode of the Book of Boba Fett where it was focused on the Mandalorian instead, was the was what John kind of hinted at. It was really 2 episodes in one, because the first was very dark, very serious, kind of showing us what Din's life was like after he and Grogu parted, and you can see he's gone back to his original ways and is a little more ruthless and like clearly in a lot of pain. And then he finds what he thinks is going to be his family, but then they cast him out. They cast him out for their religious,
You took your
like
hat
religious,
off?
yeah,
And I'm
religious
like,
reason.
Dan, run! This is your opportunity. You don't want to be with these psychos.
Yeah,
They're
no,
fanatics.
Yeah, I'm like, the Armor is a very cool character. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the show kind of portrays her a little bit of a hypocrite, which I think is the point. I think that that's a feature, not a bug. Was a cool fight between him and Paz Vizsla, but then him being cast out actually sets up a very great story for going forward, because not only does he have this object that theoretically gives him the right to rule Mandalore, but he's no longer, but he's not Mandalorian anymore. We'll see, but I think
not according to the crazy zealots.
Yeah,
Well,
but
he has to go to Mandalore to be purified now.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
that I mean,
He's
I
got a
think
that's a
you know,
mythic
According
quest.
to the Armor, if you ask like if you ask Bo-Katan, she's not going to say he's not a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
No. She
No,
might
but,
have issues with him having the dark saber, though.
Oh, I think she does, and she will. But so that's all. That was
Really?
all
You think
great,
so?
great lore. But then, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, like, and there was so much that was surprising just about picking up with Din, at this point, because now I'm left wondering, like, what were the conversations following season 2 of The Mandalorian between him and Bo-Katan? It's like, no, I'm just going to take, you don't want it, so I'm just going to take it and go back to doing my bounty hunting thing. See you later. What did she have to say about that? And then there's the whole thing with like the Armor's take on the darksaber, and like apparently Bo-Katan kind of acknowledges as well that it was probably a mistake for her to take it as just being gifted it by Sabine. But at what point did that become a thing for her, because she was fine with taking it? And a part of that is Stephen and I actually had a conversation about this, where it's sort of part of the evolving sort of narrative of Star Wars, where it wasn't something they had in mind when they were doing Rebels, but this is the direction they've decided to take it now. So they have to sort of explain, like, why was she okay with taking it in that fashion? Back then, was it just pride because she felt assured that it belonged in her hands, or what? Hopefully we'll get some more of that. But yeah, it just sets up a lot of interesting things. I am now still, like, I've been harping on this, but I am very much convinced, and if I'm wrong, it'll be fine, but I do think that the Armor is actually one of Maul's lieutenants from Clone Wars. Cast. And just, I can't wait to see more of her story, because she is a hypocrite. She's a fanatic, and she's not trustworthy. So yeah.
Okay, so
can we talk about the little chainmail now?
In just a second, because this will tie in very nicely to that, because I'm going to go back to the Naboo Starfighter. When Hela presents him with a Naboo Starfighter, and she's like, "Oh, I took out the droid port and put a Grogu-sized bubble canopy on here." I'm just like, bruh. Yeah. Like, I can see that coming from a mile away.
Yep.
Before and talked about having to go see if.
But that's the thing. Like, I gotta admit, I was Mr. Dummy on this one. I didn't see coming, because I did not see a reunion like a full-on reunion of like Grogu deciding to leave Luke and come back. I did not think that was in the cards so soon. So they caught me off guard with that. But then, of course, when you get to the end of the season, it's like, oh yes, of course, that was absolutely perfect.
That's what I'm saying, though. They're not waiting. They're not dragging things out. They're doing the thing. Oh, you want Din Djarin? Start of the episode. You want some Grogu? Just wait till next week, and he's right there.
Which completely like blows my predictions of what Mando season 3 was going to be out of the water.
Yeah. Nessie, what were you saying?
Oh,
chainmail.
The chainmail. But yeah, the scene with the armor where they're talking about how she's going to make the armor for him, but then they have the whole conversation about the philosophy. Like goes against their philosophy, and it's completely different from like the Mandalorian philosophy of family and tribe and attachments. So that sets up what's to come, in the next couple of episodes. That's what is the choice Grogu has to make, and that she tied it up in a little bundle that looked like Grogu's head.
That looked like a Grogu.
I know.
It was so
good.
It's like really that was
absolutely.
You're telling me that you didn't do that on purpose, like
But taking the spear too, the spear that the armor said, well, that's like almost an abomination. It's because it's designed.
But then she's like,
and then a little armor protective.
But that's what I'm saying. She is such a hypocrite because she's like, Beskar is for armor, not weapons. Yeah, except for those little tiny flying weapons that you made.
Oh, the whistling birds.
The whistling birds. It's like, no, lady, you're full of shit.
Yeah, she is. But I, as I said, I think that's a feature, not a bug, and they'll continue to explore that more deeply. I love kind of what this episode did with the lore of, you were talking about that moment with Bo-Katan and in Rebels where she takes the Darksaber and it's a very triumphant moment, and now it's framed completely differently. You'll never be able to watch that episode quite the same way again, because it's you now know it's a harbinger of death that's coming to her world. So, and some people view that as a retcon. I would say that as it's just going deeper, adding more context.
Added context.
Yeah. And
but I think it is a retcon, but I think that they have written it very well. Yeah. I think they've done a great job of like layering that new piece of lore over top of it.
Yeah. Totally. And I just got to say, because if I don't get this out, I'm gonna regret it. Just the second half of the episode, you said the fourth episode was a love letter to Return of the Jedi. The second half of this episode was a love letter to the Phantom Menace, and it made me so happy. Not only the Naboo starfighter and the pit droids, but ultimately going down Beggar's Canyon. And yes, when he got out of the starfighter, I was like, oh my god, is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it? And he's like, wizard, and I audibly cheered. Like, I don't usually do that watching movies and TV shows, but I was like, yes, you earned that. So
it got a genuine laugh out of me, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt the same sort of like nostalgia in that moment, but when he was like, how to handle wizard, I was just like, I see what y'all doing here.
It was just such a joy to then like hop on Twitter after that and see Phantom Menace trending and like all the episode 1 fans coming out in force. Like, did you see it? Yeah, it's great.
And I will say, like, this particular episode, my favorite of the series, was directed by the fantastic Bryce Dallas Howard, who. She did a couple episodes of Mando as well, and she crushed it every time. Like, she's one of those directors really to watch for me.
Oh, totally. I think there's been a genuine show of support for her, I think, to continue to get opportunities to direct whatever she wants. But if one of those things that she wants to direct is a future Star Wars project, I think she has more than earned the right to do whatever she would like.
Yeah. Sorry, Blue. Like, the
Well,
thing is,
we still have the final episode.
yeah, we still have the finale, and like, I don't want to rush anything, but we really should get to it. So, I really liked this episode in particular.
It's
But
really a shame because I feel like, there's, as much as like I've wanted to praise the series as a whole, and there was so much to love, but I think you could take both this episode and the next episode and do entire streams just about
probably
just about them, because there's so much in them.
But that's not what we do here. We spend 2 hours talking about a thing
Yeah, I
we
know.
like, and then we move on. And there's always stuff that gets left unsaid.
Needless to say, we're just not giving, this episode deserves so much more, and the next episode especially, than we can give it. But needless to say, it was an awesome episode, lots of great stuff. But let's move on to episode 6, because my jaw dropped.
How good is the de-aging on Mark Hamill in this? Is it perfect?
It's not
perfect.
It's
perfect
not
to me.
It's like 99.9% perfect. Like, it's just a little bit
like even
more to go. But compared to where they've been, like, I was watching this and like
you didn't like it.
At the very least, on the first viewing of the episode, I could not like detect anything unnatural whatsoever, and so I was just like, "Holy shit, they've done it! They've managed to do it."
You really did not like what they did, with this.
No, they weren't. In my opinion, they weren't there in Mando's season 2 in the finale, and I felt like pulled out of it a little bit. I did not feel that way for this episode. I was sitting there watching it, and I couldn't believe what I was watching, because it was Mark Hamill as a young Luke Skywalker, and I completely
baby Grogu.
Yeah, I had to stop the episode and get up and walk around. I was like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah. And I mean,
he did it.
He looked incredible. I did think his voice sounded a little strange at times, but it didn't take away from me take it away from me.
Yeah, and I do want to say on the voice thing, that is the only weak point for me, and it's for 2 reasons. One, because I don't think it was completely natural. I think his voice at times sounded a little stiff, and that's because of the technology they're using, which leads me to point B. I don't approve of that technology necessarily, because they're just taking samples of his voice, running it through a computer, and like make him say there's not a human element there.
Yeah.
Which I have serious misgivings about, because at least with the visual aspect, it's originating from, they've got like an actor standing in for young Luke, and they're using Mark Hamill's like, filming his face movements, and then using like other technology like deepfake technology and all that other stuff to make it what it is, but there's still a human element there. With the voice, it's a computer processing Mark Hamill's young voice, and I just don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
so
I would have preferred that they had Mark Hamill, a legendary voice actor, just do the voice himself, even if he is going to sound older than Luke should be at that age. But it's a minor quibble. I did love everything that they did with Luke, his characterization, and Ahsoka too. The fact that one of my biggest desires has been to see Luke and Ahsoka interact, and their first meeting, especially after we saw in Mando season 2 that Ahsoka had not fully processed the trauma of Anakin's turn to the dark side, and I thought that was one of the things that that Luke could kind of help her with, and she could help him kind of understand more about who his father was before he fell and was still the good man that she once knew. And we didn't get to see all of that, but because we didn't see their first meeting, but all of a sudden they were on screen together, and I was just like, whoa, they like Steven said, like they're just doing this. They did the thing. And they were just like, the way they interacted was so cool, and just those little like asides for her saying like, so much like your father, I'm an old friend of the family. That just made my heart like sing. It was so cute.
Yeah, it's stuff that I never in a million years thought we'd get to see, ever, and it was just amazing. I am seeing some comments on the chat about feeling more mixed about the CGI. I mean, for me, like I was just so blown away by it. I mean, you gotta. For me, I have to give them props when they've nailed it, and this episode will. I honestly believe it'll be seen as one of the turning points in computer technology as far as like de-aging actors and just visual effects in general. Because it was astonishing. Like this was, quibbles about the voice aside, like visually, this was young Luke Skywalker. I believed it, and
and I see Trish in the comments is bringing up the idea about Sebastian Stan, and I know that's been a popular theory or fan cast on the internet. I think, I mean, and I would have been actually very happy to see him like get a chance, because they did it with young Han. Clearly, like Alden Ehrenreich did a great job doing a new iteration of the character. It seems at this point though they're pretty pot committed, at least with regarding Luke. Like it seems like this is what they're doing going forward, and I don't know. Yeah, I get why people are worried about it, because it could be, with any new technology, the technology itself is not evil, but you have to be very careful with how you use it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with the Sebastian Stan Luke Skywalker. I really would, even though Luke is like my guy, has been my whole life. Like Luke's my guy, but I really love that the legendary Mark Hamill is still getting a chance to connect with that character, at least on some level.
I have to say, like, if they did a thing where they were having the core three interact again, I'd probably feel more comfortable if they just went and hired a younger actor to go ahead and play it, especially if they brought in Alden to play Han again. It wouldn't seem right to me you've hired a new actor, a young actor for Han, but you're going to have him interact with a CGI. Like just go ahead and bring in younger actors. But for what they were doing here, like in my opinion, like how far they were able to carry the technology justified doing it. So I'm fine with it. But if they were going to like bring the trio back in like full on for a story, I'd probably want them just to go ahead and let's just hire a couple new actors, because Alden, in my opinion, did a great job as Han, and there's nothing wrong with going there.
And I'm on course, and we're also up against a time limit here, so because my bladder is only going to last so long.
Well, because the part of the episode that we haven't talked about yet is the Cad Bane of it all at the end. That actually leads nicely into the finale, but that sequence was so well done.
It worked. That there are much of the show didn't really work for me, but
as soon as I saw those red eyes and that blue skin,
he was scary. He was like, they did a great job.
Like I didn't know who or what it was. Like walking up, I'm like, is that a Tusken? I was watching on my phone, so it was a small picture. I'm like, what is that? And then he started to get closer, and I'm like, wait,
is that a wide-brimmed hat?
Mhm.
And
That
then
hat,
he
those
gets closer.
eyes.
I'm like, and again, my dad must have thought I was crazy. But between all the Luke reactions and then when Cad Bane showed up, because I was sitting there watching my phone with my headphones on, I'm like, it's Cad Bane, it's Cad Bane, it's Cad Bane. And and like I was just so thrilled, and then he spoke, and it was Corey Burton doing the voice, and I was like, yes.
Yep, I'm so glad they got him back to do the voice.
It was just so great, but he was terrifying.
Yeah. No, that entire sequence, like he was so slow, so deliberate, and like you knew, like they earlier in the episode they had showed Cobb Vanth getting a jump on those 3 pikes to establish just how quick he was on the draw, but you knew that as soon as Cad Bane, like the reason they did that was to show that good as he is, Cad Bane's better. Still, after all this time, he is unlike Boba. He's still doing exactly what he was doing 30 years ago.
Yeah,
he hasn't changed a bit. He's still ruthless. He's still cruel, but he's still quick on the draw. And
nobody's faster, with the gun than Cad Bane. And it's.
Before we move on to 7, though, there is one more part of this episode that I would like to talk about. It was great getting a couple things. It was nice to see Grogu get some training. His flashback was super interesting. I felt it was clunky the way they got to it with, I'm going to help you remember and all that stuff. Like, be that as it may, I didn't love the way they got there, but actually seeing it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then Luke saying, like, you can only choose one, the armor or the lightsaber. And I'm
Yoda's freaking lightsaber.
And I'm sitting here thinking, look, Din just got a freaking baby seat installed in his new starfighter. And it's not like this character was introduced in a show called The Jedi.
Yeah.
So, like, I never had a doubt what he was going to choose.
Well, again, because like that sort of went over my head with the the seat in the back. I'm sitting here watching, thinking, well, this is clearly a tease for the next season of The Mandalorian, and we're going to find out what Grogu's decision was on that. Nope. Again, like you were saying, Stephen, they're not screwing around. It's like he shows up in the next episode, and it's the cutest thing in the world. It's like, the X-Wing comes in, I'm like, oh, he's going home to daddy. And
Grogu's choice, I thought that the moment was extraordinarily well done. I think ultimately we all expected Grogu to wind up back with Mando, if for no other reason that, we saw them building what looked like the beginning of Luke's Jedi Academy that we see in the sequel trilogy. And we know what happens to that academy. So I think, and everyone was very worried that Grogu would just, be slaughtered by Kylo Ren or the Knights of Ren. But I always had the sense that ultimately he was going to end up back with Din, but like John, I did not expect it to happen this quickly. I did not. I thought that they might leave it as a cliffhanger. They did not. They just put him right back. And to be honest, it does slightly take away from me from the emotional power of the ending of Mando season 2. I was kind of eager to see what Din would be like for a season without Grogu, but I understand that they've made the decision that they're now they have chosen each other. So, and they have chosen the path. So, and I still think there's a lot of interesting storytelling that can be garnered from it. So,
truth be told, I thought that like moving forward, The Mandalorian would now be about Din Djarin and about Mandalore and and he has the Darksaber and it can still be those things, but I expected them to kind of close the book on, as it was affectionately called, the Baby Yoda show. But now it's obvious, like, nope, that's what The Mandalorian is. So.
He is Star Wars now, John. He is Star Wars now.
So yeah, I'm fine with it depending on like what they do with it moving forward. But I do share those concerns because that was kind of the whole thing with season 2 of The Mandalorian and that big finish. But all the moments throughout the final, episode, just with when, it's like, look who's here. And then the way Grogu leaps up to Mando, it's like, hell, I'm not a father, but like that tugged at my heartstrings so
Do you want
much.
kids, John? Because I have extras if you want one.
I might want some of my own.
You can have one of mine.
But yeah, no, that was great, and and I loved all the stuff Grogu did, and in the battle, and putting the Rancor to sleep and curling up next to it.
So stinking cute. Like, seriously, is that not the cutest thing?
But then, of course, like
I'm
I'm skipping to the ending now, but just
okay.
Tap.
We're gonna run over a little bit this week, but let's move on to the finale. I did not enjoy the finale. It felt like a bunch of like flashy. It was all flash, no substance to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can be convinced otherwise. But you're gonna have to wait to do that till I come back from the restroom. But in the meantime, y'all go ahead. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
I don't know how you felt about it, Jared, but I thought that this episode was actually very thematically rich. Just especially all the stuff with Boba and Cad Bane and just like, when he's like, I've known you for a long time, Boba. One thing I can't figure, what's your angle? And it just shows that, Bane has not progressed forward.
Hasn't progressed
at all, ever. He is exactly the same as he always was, minus a toothpick. And it just shows that Boba has grown, and he wants to, he wants to be something else, and to be, as he's been saying, part of a tribe, and well, but then the question is left up in the air, because Bane says, "I knew you were a killer," and he does end up, at least as far as we're shown, killing Cad Bane. And what does that say about him? And granted, he probably didn't have that much of a choice at that point, but what does it say that, maybe he could have made the decision to spare Bane in that moment? So it kind of leaves you up in the air as far as, Boba has certainly changed a lot, but is there still that part of him there that is a killer? And
speaking of killers, it was really cool to finally see Fennec Shan kind of let off the chain to do what Fennec do best.
Master Assassin Fennec Shand, as he kept introducing her, and it was kind of a running joke early in the episodes where she kept being like, "Should I kill them? Can I kill them? Will we kill them?" And Boba was like, kept saying no, and then by the finale, he's like, "Yeah, some people need to kill them."
Yeah, he's like, "I tried to be nice. I tried to work with them. Sometimes."
Yeah, and that was pretty brutal how she took him out. Like the whole thing with the hanging the authority and breaking his neck. This is Star Wars is for kids, guys. It was good though.
Yeah, finally got to see her.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave that up there.
They
first two to back him, and they never even gave him names.
Yeah.
I called him Bebop and Rocksteady.
Well, I get why they did it, because they needed to show somebody getting killed, because it's to create the impression that everybody's getting taken out left and right. And
but they were like literally the only people to die.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's to. Yeah, I mean, in Serenity, Wash is the only one to die, but you do it so that you
the character that's been named and have.
Okay, can I finish? It's to create the impression that everybody's about to die, and so that's what you do. That said, I agree they got a bum deal, and maybe they could have put up more of a fight, and rather than just being pushed off the side of a cliff. But I understand why somebody had to go.
Okay, I would have liked for them to have been given names at least.
I think that they should have had names in the show. They'll probably get names after the fact. But but yeah, I take your point.
Yeah, they should have had better.
They were really like, I mean, it seems like the Mandalorian and this show have done that kind of similarly. Like the Weequay character, they kept referring to him as Weequay, which I didn't like. They finally named him in this episode, Tonti. But hopefully the Gamorrean guards will get some more treatment. John, you forgot about Shepherd Book. He also dies in Serenity. But
I meant in the final battle.
I meant of the original crew. I hear you. But yeah, this being, I also thought that this finale was quite thematically rich in terms of Boba's story. I was happy with how they ultimately paid off all the very long connected threads that had been connected throughout the show. Sometimes when the final episode's just a big battle, it's not going to connect with as many people. I did enjoy all the various aspects of the battle. I loved seeing Boba and Din fighting back to back, shielding one another, taking hits for one another. That was like, that was straight out of, action figure paradise. But and the whole Rancor sequence fighting the Scorpion-Neck droids. I know Steven had some issues with them trying actually hitting the people, and just tactics, which I get. I did enjoy the design of the droids, leftover redesigns from Attack of the Clones. Which they were badass, but the Rancor was even more so.
Well, and it also brought back like the whole thing with the shields and everything. It brought me very much back to those Clone Wars episodes on oh god, what was the planet with God, I just can't remember any character names or planet names.
With the bad guy Jedi?
No, no, it was basically where the Jedi were training the rebels how to.
On Onderon, the Onderon arc.
Yeah, and so that brought back to that. It's like no, you can't get through the shields with like brute force, and so I was happy to see elements of that creeping in.
Yeah, but I really did. I did love the final confrontation between Boba and Cad Bane, which, as we saw, the Cad Bane's still faster on the draw even than Boba Fett, and the way he just was goading him and mocking him and taunting him, and how it clearly refers to the history that they have together from that unfinished arc in the Clone Wars, which, as John has noted, is still considered to have canonically happened. But in particular, and a lot of people had pointed this out as well, but I still think it's a powerful grace note. The fact Boba ultimately defeats Cad Bane, not by being faster on the draw, not because he has armor, but with the gaffy stick, the symbol of his found family from the Tuskens, the one thing that Cad Bane could not understand, could not see coming, and that's the thing that ultimately takes his life and proves that Boba was the superior, had made the right choice, was on the better path.
Yeah, all the stuff with just again thematically with showing the journey that Boba's been on and how Bane hasn't progressed and just the whole episode was about the tribe coming together. It was all these different storylines coalescing into one and showing that these people came together and they were stronger together than in their disparate sections and with the people of Freetown coming and
the people of Freetown showed up.
And when Nessie, you said earlier about this whole thing being a Western, like that was just and also it was so much fun for me because I've got my mind going back to Deadwood and with
Timothy Oliphant
and also the bartender who then leads the people there was also from Deadwood and so it all feels like steeped in this sort of ongoing history of it's just the only initial gripe that I had with this episode, because I loved all the action beats and the stuff with the Rancor. Again, it's everything from Harryhausen to King Kong to, it's just I was geeking out at all of that. And when the shots, when, the Rancor comes in and then Boba's revealed to be sitting on it, I thought that was just amazing. There's a shot with Cad Bane with the sun over his hat, and that just is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. The only thing that initially disappointed me was the fact that Bane had just been introduced into live action, and this appears to be his swan song. But then the more I thought about it, the more it was I was just making an argument last night about, not undervaluing animation, and the fact that 95% of his story was, in animation, does not take away from anything. And really, if this was an animated show, could you have asked for a better exit for the character than a showdown with Boba? It makes perfect sense. So as you so often point out, Jared, just because we see a character's death does not mean that's the end of that character in Star Wars, because we get many Star Wars tales being told across various different timelines, and I'm looking forward to. I know that we're going to be seeing Cad in the future somewhere. So there's still more to enjoy from his character, and honestly, a showdown with Boba seems like a fitting end to that character.
Yeah, I mean, he could theoretically still be alive. If they were to do that, I would want them to have a good narrative reason for it, as I think they've every character who has been brought back from the dead in Star Wars, there has been a narrative and thematic reason for it that I've appreciated. That was the case with Palpatine. That was the case with Maul. That was the case with Boba Fett himself. So I'm not averse to there being another story, but if it's just if Cad Bane were to return, I would want him to be changed in some way, having gone an evolution like Boba did with his near-death experience, or just, like Palpatine, if he is absolute evil, then there would need to be a narrative reason for that. Or like Maul, because like Maul, it's pretty obvious that there was a parallel between the Boba and Cad Bane and the final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul in Rebels, where in that case Maul was the character who had not changed and Obi-Wan had, and Obi-Wan also beat him by using something that he had learned, whereas Maul had not.
And the great thing was then, we saw Maul's end in Rebels, but then we got to go back. We got the final season of Clone Wars and got some amazing stuff with him that I had been waiting so long to see. And if rumors are to be believed, there might be an animated Maul show about Crimson Dawn and all that. So that shows that there's, even when a character dies, there's still lots of rich material to draw from. Yeah. And I think Cad Bane will definitely be one of those characters if this truly is the end of his story. For it.
Yeah. I see you, ridiculous Ed Tollett, having that your thoughts in the chat. We're not going to focus on that right now, just because I know that this is the dream. But I will say that my absolute and unequivocal adoration for the Rise of Skywalker is no secret. So if you ever want to debate that, find me on Twitter.
Yeah. Except Sean's not on Twitter for reasons.
Well, that's okay.
But the thing is, I agree. Jared, we talked about this at HereBeCon. We don't agree about The Last Jedi. I'm always happy for people to like what they like. As long as they can understand that sometimes I don't like that thing, I'm happy for you to like it if you can be okay with me not liking it,
I'm just happy that Jared loves something that I do not. so that adds like
that you're not sharing one brain cell.
Yeah, so that actually adds like credibility to
he's a good
our
actor.
other agreements. But yeah, no, I thought that the final episode actually was a lot of fun, and then there was like I said before, I thought there was enough thematic richness for me that really ticked those boxes, and yeah, I enjoyed it, and I liked that the focus was swung back towards Boba, because as fun as episodes 5 and 6 were, this show was the Book of Boba Fett, so I enjoyed all the stuff with him and Fennec, and I'd say my biggest complaint coming out of the season is that Jennifer Beals is gone from Star Wars. And like it's not fair. It just doesn't.
She is 58 years old.
Oh,
and I'm just like,
she's doing great.
She's doing great. That's a great way to put it, Jared. She's doing
great.
Doing great. Yep. We didn't even talk about her wonderful monologue in episode 4, which was really kind of her moment to shine, and she knocked it out of the park. That whole speech to Bronsteen.
Then her shrug, like,
yeah, what are you gonna do?
It's worth a shot.
I like that.
Ming-Na
Wen, also 58 years old.
Yeah, I knew that, and she's just immortal. You know, it's she has found the fountain of youth wherever that may be. So,
is a decade younger than her. I'm looking at her like, I hate you.
No, I'll
give her that.
No, I have. Yeah, I've loved her since the days of Street Fighter. So, yeah. So, and I'm confident that not only does she have the fountain of youth, she's actually gotten more beautiful as time has gone on. So, yeah.
Yep. So where do you guys see the story going here? What's book 4 going to look like?
Here's the thing. Like, I have this theory. There might not be a Book of Boba Fett season 2. There might. But, like, there doesn't need to be. Boba can just appear in any Star Wars story that takes place in this time period, anywhere he's needed. That being said, I have no clue where they're going to go. Although, like, so we know there's an Ahsoka show coming, and we know Sabine Wren is going to be in that show. And we've got Din, and we've got the armor, and we've got Bo-Katan. So they are setting up, and we've got the Darksaber in the story. So I really think that at least long term, somehow they are moving towards a Mandalorian restoration. And, part of the question will be who will end up with the Darksaber. Is it going to be Bo-Katan? Could be Sabine. Could be Boba Fett. Because he cannot, in the old canon, he did that. I guess it's Legends now.
Yep. He became Mandalore in Legends, and it seems like part of that story may go to Din, but they may bring it back to Boba as well. He is Mandalorian through his father, the whole idea of being a foundling and found family. So, but I do think whatever happens going forward, identity and choice will be the core ideas, because we've been told many times that like the armor has one idea of what it means to be a Mandalorian, Bo-Katan has another, Boba Fett has his thoughts about the whole Mandalorian creed, of which he's doesn't seem to be a fan. But really, when it all comes down to Din making his choice about what type of Mandalorian he wants to be, is he the person who doesn't want leadership, but might be the one who can provide that leadership and restore Mandalore? And then there's Grogu, who is Mandalorian and Jedi. And despite what the choice that we offer him, I think the idea is ultimately going to be that he can and will be both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I mean, Luke is espousing some things in this that we know that he actually comes around on later in life. So, you know, he changes his tune on some things, to put it mildly.
And
so
maybe he's not there yet.
He's not there yet.
So just because he's now saying, you know, you have to choose one or the other does not necessarily mean that that's correct. Because a lot of, even though like he has some wrong attitudes in Last Jedi, but one of the things that I think he's right on is this notion of this wider understanding of the Force. And he talked about how, you know, the Force does not belong just to the Jedi, and you know, and I think a lot of that is in tune with what we hear in Rebels from the God again,
Bendu?
like Bendu,
The Bendu.
and so I'm very interested to see like what they do with Grogu moving forward, and I would like hypothesize about what I think would come up in a hypothetical Book of Boba Fett season 2, but seeing as how I have now been revealed to be completely wrong about anything I thought about Mando season 3, you know, like who knows? But I'm interested.
So was I. So don't feel bad. We were all like, that's because we kind of like, this is the backdoor episode 1 of Mando season 3 is in this season of Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, which actually like, and we didn't have the discussions about what the show should have been titled, you know, should they have, but like, I'm glad that we didn't go a year without Mando, you know,
and Grogu.
I'm glad that we got that stuff here because I love those characters, and plus I think this does now set us up for like understanding what these shows in the quote unquote Mandoverse are going to be. You know, they're going to be interconnected, and so I think people's expectations will probably be, you know, in the correct place for the shows moving forward.
Yeah.
So what about
everybody
you?
Wants to go back to Mandalore, man. Everybody wants us to, you know, we freed the galaxy. Now we've got to restore Mandalore. It's kind of like a circle coming around.
It really has like grown in its significance in the Star Wars canon.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who was largely just about the films for the longest time, like, you know, you hear about Mandalorians, and as most of y'all know, it's only been since I started doing streams less than 3 years ago that we actually even I started watching the Clone Wars and then Jedi or Rebels, and you know, we recently finished up Rebels, and I'm ready to start Bad Batch soon. But yeah, like I get this feeling that Mandalore was a thing that only like the hardcore Star Wars nerds talked about until the Clone Wars animated series, and then with the rise of the new canon, more and more and more, because it played into you know, we had a Mandalorian main character in Rebels, and we've obviously had a show called The Mandalorian now, and it's they're not doing it for nothing.
Yeah, and all of this lore has really, when you think back to it, all of it really started with Boba Fett. The whole, you know, his appearance in The Empire Strikes Back, and his wearing Mandalorian armor, and people decided, you know, that like, that sounds really cool. I want to know more about that. And here we are, nearly like essentially 40 some years later, still telling stories on that.
45 in May.
Yep, 45 for Empire. For Empire is at,
oh, you're right,
442. But yeah.
Yeah, to see his, you know, he was like Steven, I was only acquainted with Mandalore and Mandalorians, whatever, through, you know, the movies. Okay, there's Boba Fett. Yeah, cool guy, cool armor. He's a punchline during a fight scene, you know, his death, where he gets his jetpack, and it was, you know, a big ha 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 moment in comedy, you know, in the theater. And that was Boba Fett to me. He's the guy that ended up getting the Sarlacc pit, you know, out of Han's dumb luck. You know, that was it for me. And now so so much more, you know. And
Yeah.
and I'm really looking forward to going back to Mandalore.
Wait, Sean, are there
Yeah,
what's Kenobi? I haven't heard of this because there hasn't been any advertisements for this. So
I think it's pronounced Kenobi.
Oh, okay.
Kenobi.
I think people might tune into that one. Maybe that Obi-Wan Kenobi guy's pretty popular character.
It'll be really interesting.
But like I was saying, like Obi-Wan Kenobi died in the very first Star Wars anything 45 years ago, and 45 years later we're still telling stories about him. So no one's ever really gone indeed.
You know, that old wizard that lives out in the desert, old Ben. Yeah, that guy.
But it will actually be really interesting to see what Kenobi is like, because this is, you know, separate from what they're doing on the Mandalorian shows, you know. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it'll be. I don't think with 6 episodes we're going to see like an episode that's just about like yeah.
There's going to be an all Kitster episode about his efforts to form a pod racing team, get it back off the ground, and it's going to be the best episode of the entire.
I love it.
And then John Williams has composed, you know, a theme for the show. I'm interested to see who they bring on as the main composer to flesh that out. And my hope is that they'll bring in John Powell and he'll do what he did for Solo, which is take a John Williams theme and craft a really great score out of it. But we'll see. That announcement hopefully will be forthcoming. Like the trailer.
I bet we'll get it soon. So any final thoughts on Book of Boba Fett? I'll lead off. I really appreciated the different perspectives that I got from especially Jared and John. Nessie, I think you and I were kind of closer to the same camp than they were. I don't know that it has changed my point of view a whole lot. But like, you know, you're talking about themes and stuff, and when you point out the way that it's servicing certain themes, I'm like, okay, I get it. It didn't, something about the way it was written or directed or whatever, a lot of that didn't land for me. So I don't know that it has changed my perspective that much, but you know, I still was really enthused to hear about a different perspective, because you did change my mind a little bit on, like, you know, the thematic stuff with the Tusken Raiders about like that the found family aspect. So yeah, cool. Oh yeah, that's right. Weezy's sister apparently will be a featured background.
Ooh, nice
role on Kenobi. Fingers crossed. If we see her, you'll have to let us know who it is. Does she look like you, Weezy? Because I know what you look like from Instagram. If she looks like you, I'll be able to pick her out.
All right. So
that's me. And we'll go in reverse order. Nessie, any final thoughts?
I just love that we've got another story on Tatooine. Every time we go back, we just keep going back and going back and going back, and it just peels back another layer from this magical planet that has nothing to offer but the people that live there. And they tell fantastic stories there, and it just weaving it. It's all background to what's going on in the larger galaxy, but no matter where you are in the story, you always somehow end up back on Tatooine, and that just lends into how important this planet is for the whole Star Wars story. It builds some mighty people.
Yeah, people often criticize that we keep going back to Tatooine, but for me, Tatooine is part of the fabric of what Star Wars is, and especially for a show that's a Western like this is, you need, like, you know, the sand and, you know, all that stuff. It's a very good setting, and I enjoyed the heck out of it, and especially on repeat viewings. Still a little rocky, like around episode 3, that area, but I really enjoy everything else, and I'm glad that Timothy Oliphant is in Star Wars, and I'm glad that he's going to make it. I want more. I want more Marshall Vamp.
Nice.
Yep, or Cobb Vamp. Yep.
Yeah, he's coming back. He was in the back to tank and sort of like the stinger scene at the in the credits.
Yeah, is he getting mods? Is that what we were seeing?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, that the person that is
the mod
that
man
plays that character is a guy called Stephen Bruner, better known by his stage name Thundercat.
Thundercat.
I was wondering who that was in the cast list. I'm like, who's got that name? That's great.
Thundercat. RoboCop, yes.
And also, this should have gone back when we were discussing those episodes, but I love that little beat where Boba's like, aren't you going to, sew her up or whatever, and he says, and cover up all that beautiful machinery. I did like that.
Yeah.
And Jared, any final thoughts on Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the top of the show that I've always had a strong kind of emotional attachment to Boba Fett because he was the character who kind of was my gateway into learning that there was more Star Wars beyond the movies. And for that reason, I always loved him, even more than just for being a cool armor and being a badass. And Nessie had mentioned that, for many years, the idea was that Boba Fett, despite being such a popular and cool character, was viewed by certain fans as a joke because of the way he died. And that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, made me sad, kind of upset that I'm like, it's not, he's more than that, but he wasn't on screen very much. So the fact that they now have brought him back, I love what they did with him in Attack of the Clones, but now that they have brought him back post Return of the Jedi, and we have gotten to see a new story featuring him, and that he's changed. We have some people, he was the appeal of him was always that he was the man of the mask, the lone gunslinger, mystery. We knew nothing about him. Now we know more, but that's honestly what needs to happen for good dramatic storytelling is characters need to evolve and change and grow, or if they don't, then they need to they pay kind of a karmic comeuppance. And in this case, we kind of saw both sides of that coin, what Boba Fett could have been and what he ultimately became. And so for that reason, I am very grateful that we got this show. I'm grateful that we are still telling stories with this character and with all the Star Wars characters, because every day I just kind of have to pinch myself and remind myself that we're still getting new Star Wars stories. It could have just been 3 movies. It could have just been 6 movies. And now we have just this endless bounty of storytelling, and everything may not be for everyone, but my hope is that as we continue to tell these stories, people will find something that they connect to, and that it will, going forward, we can all just love the galaxy as a whole.
I'm with you. This one wasn't for me, but I'm not salty about that. I do want to bring up this because Potter, you are the ultimate troll. We love you.
But we saw Tashi Station.
Camion Fixer.
Hold on. That is a power converter in his hand. That is a gas station that says Tashi on it. That is Luke Skywalker picking up a power converter at Tashi Station. That is a real picture from Mark Hamill's Instagram. When I saw you ask that question, Potter, I had to go find it.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I got pure joy out of it myself when I saw it.
Oh yeah, but as John points out, we did actually see the real Tashi Station in this show in episode 2, and Camion Fixer, Luke's old buddies. They're who were cut out of the original movie, but here they are 45 years later.
Like, I didn't even like. It's been forever since I
Like wondering
saw
if Luke's ever gonna come pick his power converters up. They've been sitting on the shelf for years.
It's been forever since I like saw pictures of what Tashi Station looked like and those characters and stuff. But like when they went there, I instantly knew that's what it was, and those were who it was, because it just felt like this is a DP like, you know, fan moment, you know, of including that stuff. So yeah, that was fun to see, even if I'm not wasn't as clued into it as I'm sure some people were, but yeah.
Yeah, and as Sean points out, yeah, it doesn't look like Tashi Station sells power converters. It looks like a bar. I think Luke was just going there to kick back.
No, power converters is the name of a drink. It's the name of a cocktail.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I've had about all of this I can stand. My ADD is kicking in, and I'm just like, I got to get off. You know what I mean? It is what it is. John, I have no idea how you do these 4 or 5 hour streams. like I don't know how you don't go insane from them.
I was going to say, maybe I'm slowly turning, you know, you into me, but maybe not.
Nope.
Nope. I'm surprised you stayed here this long.
but like, I also don't want to necessarily cut off the conversation when you guys still have good and interesting things to say. Even if I disagree with them, there's still good and interesting things to say, you know, even if we don't connect in the same way. I still very much respect your opinions and want you to have the opportunity to speak them.
I just feel bad because I think we promised more fireworks than maybe we delivered.
Yeah, well, like the thing is, the difference isn't that you loved it and I hated it. The difference is that you loved it and I was like, meh.
You were indifferent.
Yeah. So I didn't have as much like emotion to put into it. But you know, again, it's Star Wars. We're always going to be talking about Star Wars on this channel.
Yeah.
Jared, maybe when Kenobi is done, we'll have you back for that one too, because you're clearly a super fan and you know your stuff. So like, it's always good. And
yeah,
you know, I respect anybody who can argue a position opposite me, but do it in a way that's like very like we so respectful, and you know, like that's one of the reasons I wanted John to be a co-host so early on, because we disagreed about a lot of things, but we were able to be friends through it. So yeah.
I thank you so much for the invitation. I would love to come back to talk about Kenobi when it finishes. Obi-Wan is actually one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters, so I'm sure I'll have some thoughts about it.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, and yeah, Cad Bane, very excellent. You gotta give some love to Grogu, and to, you know what though, we'll wrap it up there. So, John, you've got something at the end of the month on Cecilia's channel, right?
Yeah, it'll be next Saturday, and as a matter of fact, so it's coming up
in 6 days.
In a week, yeah. So I'll be discussing my darling Kira. We'll be talking about Pride and Prejudice specifically. Right. I'm not at all going on there just to just to talk about, no, Pride and Prejudice. Yes, that's what it's about. So tune in and watch.
Yeah. And Nessie, hopefully March.
Yeah, hopefully
we'll be talking about Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Actually, we'll probably just be covering D&D Dragon lore in general, but this expanded the D&D Dragon lore so much.
Yeah. We got like a big book of meat on the bone to throw on the banquet table, and it is a feast. I mean, the artwork, my God, the artwork is beautiful. Yeah. You know, if you buy it just for the artwork and you love dragons, yeah.
And Jared, you will be hopefully back for some Star Wars, hopefully back on John Webster Film for some movie talk, and hopefully back in the hospital. Not as a patient, but because you work there.
Yes, I'm very sorry that I'm not going to be able to make it to the Ice and Fire Con in April, because I will be on the inpatient hospital service. But But I always welcome any opportunity I have to have conversations with you lovely people, because you're all so kind and thoughtful, and it's just always a pleasure.
Jared, I think I'm probably gonna have to have you on soon to talk about atonement, because
Oh God, I would love that.
Because now
He's
that
like, God, what are we doing with it?
yeah, because I I don't have Amy as well officially. As far as I'm concerned, she's still my co-host and part of the channel, but she's not able to join, but every once in a while. So I think it'll be up to you and me to carry on the Knights of Kira banner on the channel. So
I would love that. That's one of my favorite Keira Knightley movies. Probably one of my favorite movies. Period. It's a classic.
Yeah.
And don't forget to come back here next week, where I will have I Know That Nerd with the elusive and legendary Maester Mary of the Learned Hands podcast. She's a friend. She's a person I respect a great deal, and I'm just looking forward to having a sit down and a nice fun conversation about what makes her a nerd and the things that she loves. She's going to talk about some Star Wars too, I promise you. She's a big Star Wars fan herself. But yeah, until then, thanks to everyone who was here in the live. I see Miss Man Jones just showed up. I know Miss Man is a huge Star Wars fan himself. I hope you enjoy this on the watch back, Miss Man. And thanks to everybody who is not here live, is watching later. We appreciate you too. Again, I always say not quite as much as the live viewers, but it's all good. We'll take what we can get. Please, if you've gotten this far and you haven't hit the like button, please do that. If you're not subscribed, please do that. And we'll see you all next week. Well, it'll just be me and Maester Mary, but that ought to be a really great and fun interview. She's smart, she's funny, she's got a big heart. So yeah, looking forward to it. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. And until then, you know what it is. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, John.
what?
Oh, John.
What? It's the same thing, isn't it?
It is. It's practically the same thing. Peace and be excellent to each other. Bye, everyone.